mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice is cold. I'm only here to even a score. Whoa. My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice is cold. We down right now, but did it before. Whoa. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up.
Womp, womp, womp. What up, Night Nation? It is your boy Roger, and had just finished watching that throttling of our Knights, which is not making me happy. So if you're not happy either, feel free to vent with us because we're going to be venting tonight. That being said, this is episode number 119. As a reminder, we're the only podcast that features a former UCF national champion, a former UCF radio host, an ESPN analyst, and hoops player, an infamous rapper, that's infamous rapper, our resident influencer and IG star shooting the breeze talking UCF sports. Remember to like and follow us on YouTube, IG, and check out the 70-plus teams and conferences on the College Huddle. You'll find us everywhere where you can listen to your podcast streams. And remember to check us out on the Big 12 Huddle as well. Wow. I think we're all going to have a drink. Well, not really, but because we're live, but we should after that game. We won't focus on that. We've got lots of portal movement, including 2 new quarterbacks to round out our roster from the QB room. We'll be talking about what our value is as a program and what we expect it to be and where that places us in the grand scheme of things. As a reminder, Friday is the cutoff for folks that are going to be joining us to be able to register. Technically, it's already passed, but football can get exceptions made up until Friday. In addition to that, we'll talk about this hoops game, last hoops game, and the future hoops games that we have coming along. And we'll get your comments, and we have lots of other news, including another win by our UCF women's hoops team after that close loss. And a little bit of UCF cheer news. Oh, all right. That being said, let's go ahead and get rolling. Starting first and bring into the show the man that is the tallest man in all of podcasting and especially UCF podcasting. He'll get your groceries off the top shelf for his grandma at Publix. It's Ben Stout, folks.
What's up? What's up? Good to join you guys again, Roger. It's been a little while. Happy to be back with everyone. Well,
yeah, we're excited too, man.
Not everyone, but
yeah, I'm going to be excited to hear what you've got for our hoops team. This was kind of what we were talking about not getting too excited about this stretch that's a little difficult. I think we had some good showings up until tonight, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. So we'll talk about what you saw besides Stillwell not being on the floor and go from there. All right, last but not least, but always last, Josh Lazar. Welcome to the show.
Hello, world. You're saying that about Ben. I really feel like somehow we need to get Taco Fall on the pod so Ben could be the second tallest
on
UCF podcasting. Yeah, I mean, if we can pull in Taco Fall, anybody who's out there who knows Taco Fall, please go ahead and tell him we'd welcome him on the podcast. Yes. We cannot provide facilities for him, though. He's just too tall. All right. Maybe we can post him out. We can post him up at Ben's house. He does have, folks. He is over 7 feet tall and has taller doorways and everything for that and taller counters. Sure. His counters go up to my chest. So just so you guys know, Ben did make those updates there, and Taco would fit in his house. All right. All of that nonsense out of the way. Let's go ahead and talk about the transfer portal. That's what everybody's still talking about. It's almost over, folks. Friday, as I mentioned, is the last day that UCF will register folks. So that means Friday is the last day of our portal. That does not mean that we cannot go get additional players. They just cannot register for this semester. So there's still a possibility that we get a few. We do have a few roster spots that are left over. In total, we've got 33 folks that transferred out, and we've balanced that with 29 transfers. In those that transferred out, DJ Black found his landing spot at South Carolina, as we suspected, along with Max Drag, the tight end. He was a good blocking tight end for us. When we maintained our tight end room, we also snagged another tight end to replace him, so we'll talk about them a little bit. Davy Belfort, we completed the trade with JMU, so we got their quarterback, and they got our quarterback. So happy for him. Hopefully he gets some playing time. Good dude. Obviously was not going to get the starting gig here. Stacey Gage also landed at LSU, which, I hope he gets some playing time there. He definitely got some money, and he was definitely he was definitely a player that we expected a lot out of. So wish him nothing but the best at LSU. Sad to see him go, but we did bring in our Duke running back to replace him. That being said, that's the people that are leaving. Those folks that are coming in, we signed quite a few, and we'll run through those. First of all, we completed our quarterback room, so now we're back to 5 after we heard Davy was going to leave last week. We're back up to 5. So the first person that we signed was a kid by the name of Caleb Annette. He was a 3-star quarterback coming out of high school. Did not get any playing time. He was the 4th string QB at Boise State. So I feel like that was more of the swap as to what Davy's role kind of filled with our QB room. So it's interesting to me, being that he was a 3-star quarterback, that he came out as a 4-stringer and decided he knows what his role is going to be here. So the only thing I can guess is that he got paid a little bit more here. He is 6'3", 195. He was originally out of Corona Del Mar, so Newport Beach, California. He joined Boise State last season, didn't get any playing time, spent some time on the with the show team, basically, for Boise State, running opposing offenses for them. And that's really all we have to say about him. So we'll see how he figures in, but obviously he knows, and we know, that he's going to be probably that 4th roster spot for us, or 5th roster spot for us at QB, which you never expect to use, but after last season, who knows, man. After that, we also completed our QB room with one Keon Jenkins from FIU, which is interesting because Keon is a very experienced quarterback. He was at FIU. This is his last year of eligibility. Someone that I expect will be the backup, at least early, to allow our high schoolers to play. We'll see what happens if Rocco or any of the guys kind of stand out and kind of take that place. But he's our insurance backup for sure. He was injured last year, so in 2024 he had great numbers. He had some time in 2023. Got some time. He had 332 attempts, 194 completions, 2,400 passing yards, 11 passing TDs, 11 interceptions, with and 117 rushing attempts for 50 yards with 6 rushing TDs. So kind of a dual threat guy. He's a guy, if you watch his tape, he's more of a guy that's going to kind of run around a little bit. That does best when there's broken plays. In 2024, he came back. He had 304 attempts, 188 completions, so about the same completion percentage, 2,557 passing yards. He can sling the rock, 22 TDs and 8 interceptions, so much better. Obviously, adjusted his sophomore year to the game, basically the speed of the game, etc. He also had 75 rushing attempts for 130 yards and 2 rushing TDs. Now, last season, he also played for FIU. He had 263 attempts, 164 completions, 1,742 passing yards, 9 passing TDs, 6 interceptions, 51 rush attempts for 132 yards, and 5 rushing touchdowns. So what do we make of this? This is, to me, a guy that's coming in to be the backup, and be that insurance backup. And he seems, from his stats, to be pretty good. He had multiple injuries last season, which kept him out. A little worried on his TD to interception ratio, but he was out quite a bit, kind of like our quarterbacks, in, out, half a game here, half a game there, etc. But still can sling the rock, and obviously has a big arm. What do you guys think about getting someone like Keon on the roster? I mean, I'm kind of surprised because he was expected to compete again for the starting position at FIU. So kind of surprised that he came back and came over to us.
Yeah, I'm wondering if something like a little bit of money is better than nothing, or learning under Scott Frost and kind of holding the clipboard, which seemed to be maybe a Cam's deal there too. Look, at the end of the day, who knows who's going to be the QB? Well, let me reiterate that. When people stay healthy, we know who the QB is. After that, who knows? And because of that, there's either a legit shot at learning and growing, or you're one ankle away, as O'Leary or injury away, as O'Leary used to say. So I'm glad to have whomever wants to be here, and whether they're learning or growing or honestly being backup to backup is maybe more lucrative here than it is at FIU. I don't know if that's a thing at this point, but glad to have 5 people in the room, because obviously we needed that level of depth last year. Hopefully we don't this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting scenario to come into this team. I mean, I think all these kids, regardless of where they're transferring to, I have trouble calling them kids when they're making that much money, but regardless, all of these young adults, these athletes transferring in, I mean, I think they're all competitors, right? And so they, probably understand that Alonzo Barnett coming in here is he's our QB1 next year. He's a playoff caliber quarterback. Led his team to that high ranking, and he's coming in with all of the background and experience that we're looking for to take our team to the next level. And so I thought about the other day, and forgive me, I haven't watched any tape on Caleb Bennett or Keon Jenkins. But that being said, they're probably both coming in here thinking that they didn't quite get to the level that they wanted to. Certainly, that's true with Caleb Bennett not having played a single snap, in a game yet. But even Keon Jenkins, he wants to see how he can represent himself and represent UCF at a higher level than what he has been at so far. As Josh said, if you look at UCF's recent history, the unfortunate reality is that our starter going into this season doesn't necessarily make it past the first quarter. Like
recent history, that's going back to
right?
No, I don't think it's Bortles. I think that's back to Mackenzie Milton after Mackenzie Milton.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, obviously, even Mackenzie Milton got his career started off of an injury, with oh my gosh, Justin Holman injury. And so, but recent history, it's been even worse with our backup QB, getting inserted into the game because of an injury a lot earlier than UCF fans were anticipating. And so I think they look at that as an opportunity. I think that they all, regardless of, or that entire QB room, looks at QB2 as a huge, completely up for grabs. Anybody can go take it at this point. And from UCF's perspective, from Scott Frost's perspective, from Mackenzie Milton's perspective, I mean, you do want some sort of experience in college in that QB room to, hopefully even provide an even better foundation for a guy like Rocco Marriott and maybe Dante Carr if he progresses past some of the raw ability that he has as well. And so I think those two guys are the future of UCF. The two that that joined us this week, and Caleb Annett and Keon Jenkins, could be a little bit of a further stopgap or a competition for those guys. I mean, even Caleb Annett, I mean, he's been in college a couple seasons, so he at least knows what it's like at the college level to prepare for games. He's seen college speed, at least in practice, not necessarily on the game field. So he could look at it as an opportunity as coming in here and maybe stealing that position from people. I mean, he's somebody that, just like the couple of freshmen that we have coming in, I'm sure was, recruited out of high school to some top schools, and he was the man in high school, and it hasn't worked out for him yet. But the way that we're talking about Rocco Marriott being the future of our program, but not the future right now, I mean, these guys could have been in the same situation a couple of years ago. And so I think they're coming in to try to take any opportunity that they can get and see if they can seize it.
All right. So, speaking of Keon, he is completing about 63% of his passes and has been. So he's a good person to add, or QB to add to our stable. Moving on from the QB room, we had another transfer from Colorado, TJ Branch. Now, what's interesting about TJ is UCF was recruiting him as well. His position is officially listed as safety, but he played a little bit of safety, played a little bit of DB in his high school years as well. He's out of Miami Northwestern, 6'3", 170 pounds, so good size on him. He was a borderline 3-4 star. He was someone we recruited pretty heavily. Didn't get any playing time at Colorado, but did come back home to us and has a lot of talent. So excited to see him. Another good addition to our safety room. What's interesting is that one of the things folks are asking is, like, why are we getting so many DBs and safeties, et cetera? One of the things that we do, and our defensive coordinator does, is that safety, and especially that linebacker position, both of those play a lot of different hybrid roles. So we needed some length. And so those shorter guys that we're getting on blitzes, when you're playing nickel, when you're playing different defenses, and especially those linebackers will play a hybrid defensive end type role, or like an extra defensive end, basically. So that's why you're seeing the mix of how many defenders that we're actually getting into the backfield. We brought a lot of good defenders back, but TJ Branch is definitely a good add for us. Next, we talked a little bit about tight end Grayson Brousseau. Comes to us from Oklahoma State University. So that's an interesting add as well. He actually was a 3, almost 4-star tight end coming out of high school. Wow. He's 6'5", 239 pounds. He's out of Utah originally. He was an 85 prospect, 3-star on 247, and on 3 he was almost a 4-star prospect. In 2025, he did have some stats. He had 7 catches for 45 yards. Having talked to our OSU insider, he was actually expected to be a lot more active and be a bigger part of their offense going forward. So there was a little bit of a surprise that happened. However, with us hiring our tight end coach from OSU, it makes sense that we got someone who he felt had promise to come over and transfer to us. He was originally at Utah State. He signed in 2023, didn't play at Utah State, went to Oklahoma State, got those 7 receptions, and then now he's transferring to us. So Oklahoma State fans were expecting him to be a bigger part of this offense. So I think this is a good get. He's a redshirt freshman. So, he's going to have plenty of time to develop, and obviously already has some familiarity with the coaching staff and how they were going to use him at OSU. So excited to get Grayson Brousseau on. Then next we had Brad Gurley. Now this is an interesting one. Brad Gurley, I had to dig deep to find some information about him. He's an FCS. He's one of those FCS guys. He is transferring from Eastern Kentucky University, had 45 total tackles, 21 solo, 24 assisted tackles, 3 passes defended, 5.5 sacks, and 0 interceptions, right? So he is a defensive lineman. He's listed as a defensive lineman because he can play multiple positions. He's one of those guys that was a late bloomer in football in high school. So he turned into he was an FCS All-American and has turned into quite the force as far as where he was in Eastern Kentucky. He's 6'3", 293 pounds. And he can play multiple positions on the line. I think he, will want to gain a little bit of weight. But the way that we play on the D line, if you've noticed, a lot of our guys are right at 300 or just under 300 pounds, whereas in previous years, we had a lot of defensive linemen that were 3 to 313, 315, somewhere like that, and our average was 307. So it'll be interesting to see, but he is an FCS All-American. So again, picking those top-level FCS guys to be part of our roster. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. And that's everybody who we added. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's not. We added Kyle Hicks as well. We were talking about having a long snapper. We needed a long snapper. He was the top-graded long snapper, another FCS call-up in the FCS according to PFF. He is originally from Nashville and was at Tennessee State. He started all 12 games last year and earned a 90.3 grade from PFF. So, he should be a consistent long snapper for us, and it's something that we needed after our long snapper moved on and obviously transferred. So, it's something that we need to fill, and he's quality from the FCS side of things. The next bit of news I want to share is, unfortunately, we've been talking about the situation with Cole Kozlowski. He's a guy that we, wanted to have come back. He was one of those FCS transfers. He transferred from Colgate last year. He made a big impact last year at linebacker, and he was part of that lawsuit that was trying to push for inclusion or an extra year in FBS or more eligibility because they were in FCS. The last time we talked to you about this, that lawsuit was still pending. They pushed it back for discovery, and then ultimately it got denied. So unfortunately, we've seen the last of Cole Kozlowski, which kind of sucks because I would have really liked to see him for another year. Last on the recruiting front, we have Jordan, a late ad. Jordan, I'm gonna mess.
Nua, right?
Nua was what I was gonna say, right? So. He was recruited by Mackenzie Milton, obviously the Hawaii connections there. He is from Hawaii. He was a 2026 prospect, so he's a freshman wide receiver. It lists his weight at 150, but some folks that I know that saw him in person said he definitely weighed more, but no matter what, he's going to have to put some weight on. He's 6 foot. His high school was St. Louis High School out of Kaputai, Hawaii, and he had interests. He was offered by Oregon, Nevada, and us, and that was it. So it's interesting because they list the distance on here, 4,751 miles. He was ranked the number 66 wide receiver in his class, and he's a 3-star on 247 and a borderline 4-star on 3. So seems like a good get. Obviously, we got him because of his ties to Hawaii and Mackenzie Milton. And that pretty much rounds out our class, barring some late surprises later in the week.
So I was going to say that that St. Louis High School in Hawaii is like a famous high school for the kind of football players that have come out of Hawaii. Not necessarily KZ, but I mean the biggest names that we know is, you know, Tua Tagovailoa, you know, Marcus Mariota, Roman Wilson, you know, came out of that high school. They've got a number of like former and current NFL players that came out of that high school. So it is a, you know, a top-notch high school in Hawaii that has some famous alumni out of it. So him producing at a high level out of that high school, you know, could certainly be a good thing for us to hopefully come in and make an impact for us.
Awesome. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people are asking about Oline. We did too last week. And word is out of Frost & Co., which Frost and his staff have really been keeping things pretty hush-hush as far as recruiting is concerned, complete opposite of the approach that we had under Gus Malzahn, right? But word is out of the recruiting and Frost camp is that the O-line is done. So they are quote unquote happy with the O-linemen that they got. We got 2 centers. That was a big one that we were asking about. There were 2 potential centers that we brought in and that are going to anchor the line. So it'll be interesting to see who plays. We rotated. We didn't rotate as much last year. We did a lot on the D line because of where they're positioned. But with the O-line, it's a little bit different because they have to know the plays, they have to know each other, et cetera. So it'll be interesting to see who solidifies out of there. But that's going to be my big question mark for this year's recruiting class. 1, because we had to replace the entire offensive line, and 2, because you know the folks that we brought in, there's nobody that really stands out that says, okay, wow, we can't believe we got that guy. So it'll be really interesting to see how they gel together. So that's a little bit of concern coming out of this portal season for me is, did we get enough depth on the O-line? We rotated, I think it was like 3 centers last year because of injury. So do we have enough depth in O-line? What do you guys think? Are you satisfied? I mean, we kind of have to be okay with it, but you know, how happy are you with the O-line?
I mean, but we don't have any choice, right? But if we're talking about being talking heads, you know, I have to trust the staff, right? I would like to see more players. I would like to see more depth. But the reality is, if we either didn't have the money or we're really comfortable where we're at, it's a little different. It's a little different. Like, let's take the championship game yesterday. I know, Roger, for purposes of whatever, you didn't actually watch it, and I get that. But the defense,
I protest.
You protest ESPN
the playoff. Yes,
yeah.
And ever since 2017, that's been my stance.
Well, listen, I agree with that because we probably would have been would have been 15-0, but still, like long story short,
we're still the last national champion out of Florida.
Correct.
Just saying.
Correct. Fair. The defensive ends of Miami were insane. They were just absolutely insane. That's not to say the offensive line from Indiana was just Swiss cheese. They weren't. They were just beaten by really, really good, probably first round draft pick defensive ends. You know, for money. Coached by a Hall of Fame, you know, coach, right?
I mean, our best defensive end came from Miami last year, right?
Yeah, it's the lines matter significantly, and our lines could, at least the offensive line could be different this offense because we're not necessarily 365 pounds in the center, right? We want some more nimble people, so it might look a little different. I give it a year. Let's see what we could do. But I'd like
kind of one of those throw your hands up kind of moments, right? One of the things that is newsworthy that's coming out of the portal on offensive linemen. Offensive linemen are typically the 2nd to 3rd highest paid players that come out of the portal. So, and they're also the fastest to be scooped up out of the portal.
Yeah.
So it's a little scary that, that I think we took some swings and some misses, and we took our plan B on a lot of these. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. But part of this is, I think, roster management and in the sense of what we can pay for and where we wanted to spread it around. It's just like NFL teams, right?
Yeah.
When you're in free agency, right, you can go get a star player. You can go, I mean, look at what happened with the Dallas Cowboys with Dion, right? They went all in, and Jerry Jones filed a lawsuit, basically sustained a lawsuit and changed the way that advertising was done in the NFL. You've got some folks that you can sink some higher dollars into, but we had so much roster turnover that we had, and not as much continuity, that you have to be careful of where you stick your dollars. And John Walker is a perfect example of that. He was down to us and who he went to, right? And we just couldn't pay him as much, and he cashed in. So, at the end of the day, you have to be conscious in this day and age of what your other needs are. If you've got a bunch of O linemen that you've got to replace, right, and you've got to go compete for those O linemen, and the dollar amounts just keep going up and up and up. I mean, you see guys transferring late, QBs transferring late after they've signed because they got a $5 million offer to go somewhere else. There's a lawsuit that dropped today from Duke around that. So that's the environment that they're competing in. And I think, part of that is catching up the high school players and starting to mature them, because it's kind of like getting a rookie when you're coming in the NFL. If you're outside of the top 10, if you're a second, third round guy, you're still a quality guy that's expected to produce long-term, right? But you've got a little bit of extra cash to develop along the way. And you're going to keep them for 4 years. So I think there's a little bit of that when it comes to roster management and how you spend your budget, and being able to get some of those high school guys, work them up. You're going to spend a little bit less on them the first year or so, right? If they're not starters right away. And we didn't have a lot of that because we had so much turnover. I mean, we talked about it. It was 33 guys that left in the portal, and our offensive line was completely decimated, which is not cheap when you're having to buy that many offensive linemen.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because you're talking about the NFL. This is kind of mimicking the NFL. At one point, running backs were worth a lot of money, and now not so much unless you're like Saquon or a couple of others, right? Or Derrick Henry's and whatnot. Running backs probably are not getting as paid as well as offensive linemen, which mirrors the NFL. Quarterbacks getting the most money mirrors the NFL. Certain people on defense, but definitely lines getting buco bucks mirrors the NFL. Basically, we've come the mini NFL, and it's unfortunate because there's like two or three things that get that kind of go missing. And I use Mendoza as an example. Mendoza last year, 6-6, stoked to beat Stanford to get into a bowl game, great stats and all that. And you can see the love that he had for his team. That was mostly where he was at for a couple of years. That was his team. Does what he does with Indiana, last night in this season. Same guy, different clothes. Right. And the same hype is there, same level of football there, but it's for another team. And it just, I won't say it doesn't feel right, but there's pieces of college football that really should remain. I forget the money. I understand that part, but the pieces of actually going to class with a fellow student.
Carson Beck hasn't gone to a class
online
in 2
classes.
years. Who cares?
Listen,
we're doing the UNC model. Fake classes, you just not show up, take a test that your tutor gives you, whatever.
I agree, but there's some parts of that
old man yells at
feel should there's some parts of that should be retained. It shouldn't be as professional as it's becoming. Should be
but the reason for that is there's no guidelines around it. There's no guidelines on the agents. There's no guidelines. Right. I mean, you look at what's happening in schools right now with Duke, and
everything's horrible.
who was the other school that just lost a big name quarterback to?
Was it Washington and they sued him?
Yeah.
or
Washington, and then he
someone?
came back. Yeah, he
Yeah, he
came
came
back.
back. Well, that's
So
the thing. Like you are right. The NFL at least has a framework where you imagine if this happened in the NFL. Like
It wouldn't.
like
You invest
it
too much
will.
money in these guys. But
Correct.
the difference is these guys, unless they're the top 5 to 10 picks, they're going to make more
Correct.
in college playing 1 year than they would in the first probably 2 years to 3 years in the NFL.
Yeah, and when you trade to other teams because you do well, there's rules about that in the NFL. You get compensation at times. You grow and develop a student athlete or student or anyone in college.
Nobody's
and
developing student athletes anymore because of the portal, man. They either
Well,
play right
that's
away and then
part
they
of
go
the
to
problem.
Yeah, no,
The
I
other
get it.
the other interesting thing about the portal is that over 10,000 athletes, football athletes, joined the portal this cycle these last 2 weeks, and roughly 20% of that that group of people that were trying to seek other opportunities remain unsigned. And so it is an
Well,
interesting other side of that coin, is that the era of player movement and player empowerment is actually in some cases, well, we know for certain that it hurts high school recruiting. I mean, like a high school recruit that is not in the top 50, top 100, top 300 is is really struggling finding opportunities to join a school. That's way more prevalent than it was even 5 years ago, let alone 10, 15 years ago. But you see it also in the era of player movement with the transfer portal, just, as far as transfers trying to seek what they perceive to be a better opportunity, because whether or not they feel that way or the people advising them feel that way,
their uncle who's going to charge them 20% of whatever.
they're trying to get some form of compensation that they or whatever they don't feel like they're getting at their current spot, instead of just earning their stripes and learning the system and becoming indispensable and earning your playing time. They decide to move on to, or try to move on to, another place, and they wind up, that's it. A lot of them don't realize that they played their last college football game a month and a half ago, and a lot of them don't even realize it until this past Friday, and they were left out in the cold.
Well, 20% of
that's
them.
an interesting thing.
Yeah, and they won't be picked up
No.
the next year. They may go to FCS or something and not even have a scholarship and have to pay to play. The other thing is, that 20% number is actually low because you're not accounting for all the people that went into the portal and then ended up signing with their existing school anyway.
Yeah, sure.
So there was even an example with one of the kids that UCF was looking at. He came to us. He was playing the field. He came to us, visited. We had he was defensive line or defensive end. Was going to, and this was recently within the past couple of weeks. Yeah, came to us, visited, was expected to sign, then ended up decided to play the field, had a few offers from other schools, but they weren't real offers. And then he ended up not getting anything from a FB or a power school. So it was, it's interesting. You play the game. I mean, it's the F around and find out kind of Wild West. So that 20% number is actually low because there's a lot of people that went in the portal, didn't find a spot, and then ended up back on the roster they were at. Now, we also had a shot at MOBA, who was a bigger QB name than what we got. Unfortunately, he came and visited last weekend. Unfortunately, he was a pretty big name. We just couldn't or wouldn't spend the money on him as a QB. He went back and forth, and then a couple days ago ended up committing somewhere else. But it's interesting, and it also speaks to, this is another measuring stick for UCF football as to where we are as a program within the NCAA, right? Another measuring stick that you look at is what the program's value is, right? You now have multi-billion-dollar programs. So Texas, the list was released by the Wall Street Journal of the valuations of football programs. So I'm going to ask you this, if you guys haven't read the notes. Where does UCF stand, do you think, as far as ranking, like number ranking, as far as value is concerned, as a football program? This isn't the athletic program. This is the football program.
And that's you're saying, how do we rank nationally as far as like the value of our overall program? Meaning, like if you were to put a dollar number on it.
Correct. Football program.
Ranked out of like 137 or whatever team.
Correct.
Like valuing the brand, basically.
Just what it's worth, all the assets, everything. So Texas is at 2.3 billion or 2.6 billion. What do you think UCF is at? They're number one.
2.6 billion.
And I'm not even going to ask you how much. I'm not even going to ask you how much you think, but I'm going to ask you what number ranking do you think they're at, or we're at?
6, 7.
It's like 100. Yeah, you were saying, Josh, there's like 130 something division, FBS schools, right? And so, it wouldn't surprise me that we're somewhere in the 60s. Just because somewhere in the middle of that, basically. I'd be a little surprised if I saw over 100. I certainly would be surprised over 100. Kind of in that bottom third, but I would be
just as
surprised, I guess, to see us in the top 40.
Throw a dart. Give me a number.
63.
Oh, he lowballed you. Closest.
Yeah,
to
no, it's all good.
The actual number, as far as where UCF ranks, is number 64. As of,
we were both pretty close.
Yeah, and remember how many power schools there are, right? Now that we have 4 power conferences, right? So we check in as of last year. So this was released middle of this recently, right? But this was as of last year's number is 132 million is what the football program is valued at, compared to the 2.6 billion for Texas, right? So far cry. However, remember that was based off of the previous year's numbers. So the new dollars that we're getting paid now in the Big 12, right, is not reflected in that ranking. Next year, we're estimated to be about 210 million. So if we're at 210 million as a valuation for the football program, okay, that puts us at number 57, as if everything stayed the same for everybody else, and most others will, because they don't have the same situation we did, which is we weren't getting paid the full payout, right?
Which this year was our first year where we got that, right? First year?
So this academic year, right? So from July 1
to July
25 till today. So that wouldn't have been reflected in last year's numbers. So that means we would go from 130 million to 210 million, which means that's $80 million more value that UCF is worth as a football program than they were last year. Now, when you think about that, at 64, right, UCF's ahead of these power schools: Wake Forest, Vandy, SMU, Cincinnati, who was only at 92 million, Boise State, that was at 91, Houston, that's at 90 million. And that's it as far as and West Virginia, which I don't know if this is a mistake, but West Virginia is listed at number 82 with a $48 million valuation. Now, I saw previous lists that they were lower, but I couldn't imagine that it was 48 million for them.
That's
I don't understand that.
A drop from the 90s, man. But so is Virginia Tech, although they're probably ranked above us. SMU is kind of a head scratcher only because of history and the amount of money they're putting in. But as a brand, they're pretty iconic as a brand, but
Yeah, but they don't sell tickets, man. Look at their
you mean that part of it? Oh,
football
yeah,
field.
that's
It's
fair.
all their assets, what the program is worth, right?
Yeah,
Their
fair.
advertising
Me too,
deals,
okay.
like their stadium size, and even their stadium size, they sell well for basketball, but it's still
Yeah.
an 8,700 person, I think, arena. For football, they have a 32,000 seat stadium, and they don't sell that out ever. So they are top heavy in that they have like big boosters that are helping fund their NIL. But as far as the value of the football program, assets, brand value, like everything that's there, how much revenue they're bringing in, et cetera. Yeah, they are at 107 million now.
And I feel like that what you just talked about with SMU, Josh, or like that's like our age and older. I mean,
Yeah.
no person under 35 like
Cares about
cares or
SMU.
even knows about the history of SMU football and like all that. Like they're kind of a nobody to anyone under 30 for certain. But yeah, it's just anyways, I think they're reflective of they've got big money around the program as far as donors go, but fan interest is just not there. Like people who don't necessarily have a whole lot of money don't really care about SMU.
All right. So if we moved up at that 210 million, we would be right behind Stanford, which is at 211 million, but in front of Kentucky at 202 million, Mississippi State at 197 million, Rutgers at 190 million, Baylor at 183, Oregon State, former Pac school, at 180, Arizona State at 176, and Mizzou at 168 million. So when we start thinking about who UCF is in today's college football landscape, because this is definitely a piece of that, right? And something that people need to understand that I don't think is quite reflected in here too is part of this is debt service, right? One of the advantages that UCF has is that our stadium, unlike many others, pays for itself. It's net neutral, right? In fact, we refinanced our bonds in 2011, and we added and consolidated some debt, and we're still making money off of our stadium with our tickets, right? Whereas most of these other schools, they do these $200-300 million renovations. They're not paying cash for those. They have debt service on those, and they're betting that they're going to continue to make more every year as a power program, right? To be able to pay for that. So what happens when, schools in the ACC, if the ACC dissolves like we're predicting in 2030 or 2031 or whatever, and they start getting ripped apart and their TV contract comes down, what happens then, right? It's not going to affect schools like SMU, but it will affect some of the other higher dollar, current higher dollar, higher value ACC schools. So what this means is our goal has to be, right, if it goes to a power 3, which is kind of what we're predicting, and then who knows if it goes to a power 2 eventually. I think there's too much politics that's going to happen there. But if it goes to a power 3 conference and it's, let's say, 20 apiece, right? That means we have to be in the top 60 schools to be part of that power 3. UCF is positioned, in spite of how we've performed lately financially, we are positioned as a top 60 program in college football, as young as we are. And that's because we've been good stewards of our money. So what does that mean on a go forward basis? That means that we should be advantaged, right? And we just got 90 million from that and debt service that's being paid by the Orange County, right? And the ability to draw more. So that means that we should be flexible enough and a lot more competitive within the football landscape. If we've got more money to spend than Mizzou, who's in the SEC, or even Rutgers, who's making Big Ten money, right? What does that say about UCF's place even within the Big 12? Do we as a program, and this is where, Terry, which I heard he heard about his name recently being TikTok Terry, And
Did you know that?
Not Timu Terry.
Not Timu Terry. That's my moniker. I don't think it's got that far up yet. But TikTok Terry, he did hear about that, by the way, and he was surprised. And he was like, "That's what they really think of me." And yeah, so apparently he was surprised by the fact that he had that nickname. So he's aware of TikTok Terry. Now, all of the folks that are watching right now, you need to help me like circulate Timu Terry, right? So so that we can work on that. But all jokes aside, Terry will not have the excuse to not be able to compete if he's in a top 60 program financially next year. He has more has more capital and is worth more, right, than what Mizzou is. Now, again, the SEC will make more money as we go along, right? But there's no reason we should not be able to compete at a higher level. And this takes that excuse away, right, that we've been hearing constantly is we have no money, we don't have it, we're disadvantaged from a monetary perspective, etc. At some point, he's going to have to take a chance and kind of do some of what's made us successful before, right? Which is we spent money and took a leap. Now we kind of had to because of Buddy Dyer and what happened with the whole Citrus Bowl situation. But we took the leap. We built a football stadium and basketball arena at the same time. Nobody had ever done that before. I still remember going to a Blink 182 concert in '99 at the old arena. But yes, I'm that old, people. Can you see the grade?
Yeah, well, I was about to say.
You have no room to say old there, Josh. You are older than I am.
I saw Violent Femmes. Come on.
So
I saw Blister in the Sun live at UCF. I saw Black Eyed Peas without Fergie at UCF. I saw John Popper drunk at the Citrus Bowl.
All right, so I'm watching
waddling around
go down as you reminisce here, right? So you're older.
I saw
than
Lenny
me,
Kravitz.
But the point is that I'm trying to make is, how does this position us go on a go forward basis? UCF, we got to stop thinking about ourselves. We are the little engine that could, right? But Terry's got to take some chances.
Yeah.
You know, no matter what you think about Steve back in the day, you know, and he did get let go for cause, right? But he's the one who said yes to the dress as far as like putting on the football stadium and spending the money on the basketball arena. Danny took a chance, took chances left and right. And yes, it was a bad financial situation when we left because we found out later how much we were saving to be able to spend a little bit more to be successful in football. So now Terry's going to have to, he can't be Mr. Fiscal Responsible anymore. That's not going to work with UCF football fans. You've got money. You're a top 60 program, right? Right at 57. You've got the same money that Stanford does. Now you don't have, like, Stanford obviously has an endowment that's much bigger, right? But as far as a football program, what it's valued at and what money you have and revenue you have to spend, you are using like $90 million of tax dollars from Orange County. You've got to start taking some chances. And I'm guessing that UCF football, combination of, hey, we're going to come up here in, we're going to be coming up here on our you're going to see some movement within the football programs within college football. And, right, you're also going to have a TV contract that's coming up. He has no excuse next year not to spend some good money on football and take some chances and swing for the fences. We did that with Gus's money 2 years ago, right? And we ended up with a guy that hung out at Waffle House more than he did at the practice facility. But he's going to have to swing for some fences here, and the excuses go away.
Well, I think two things happen. One, I think this is kind of more of a show year. So this is the money we have. What can you do, Scott? Like, what can your team do with this is the funding we have? You have all year to recruit. You have all these things. You have a modicum of momentum. Much. Yeah, just very small. But we have some
next year or this year?
this coming year. I think this coming year is okay, what can you do with this? Listen, I think next coming football year, if we can show, it's like investments. If we can show a return on investment that's worth what we put in, then you throw more money at it to get a bigger cut of that pie. We don't have Mark Cuban on our sideline. We have Taylor, right, Herring, but we don't have our Cuban. We just don't have a bunch of people who are willing to throw millions and millions of dollars at football, because $1 million doesn't mean anything to them. We just don't. And part of that, and I know you're going to say it again, is because we don't have 100+ years of history in this university. We don't have
guys that have been throwing millions of dollars at it, though.
We do, but we don't have generational historical money with people whose parents have passed along funding.
When you get that kind of money from those donors?
Yeah.
When you start winning football games, right? Look at Troy Aikman. Look at Troy Aikman and what he did with his alma mater, right? He started pulling that money back because of NIL, right?
Yeah,
and
I agree with that.
People put money behind winning football teams.
Correct.
If you don't win for long enough, they're not going to put their money where their mouth is.
Correct.
You build the excitement in Orlando. You've already got some historical big donors, right?
Correct.
And you see some of those names out there, right? And you've got some crypto millionaires that are pretty close to billionaires at this point that will spend some money. Then you've got someone who spent some money on our basketball team and our football team and our Mr. No Bull guy. There are people in Orlando that will spend money, but you got to put a winning football product out there, and they got to believe in the leadership, because why would I throw my millions, right, if it's toy money, at a bet at someone that I don't think can lead?
Which is exactly why I think this is the show year. I don't think we have enough money to compete at the top of the Big 12, but maybe we can put together the right plan, the right group, the right sausage, right? And put together that. I want to say something, but I'll censor myself.
Like pause?
I was pausing
right
myself.
Sausage?
Well, we can
what
put
is wrong with you, Josh?
Together that right recipe, that correct recipe to show, not say we're going to do something, but show we can do something. I think that's as simple as like 8-5. I don't really think this has to be like.
So
I don't think it's that, to be honest.
I don't know if it's necessarily as cut and dry as the record that we're trying to achieve or trying to find a bowl game. Like what you just said, it's time to show us instead of telling us. But like, what has Terry really articulated as far as a vision for the future of this program? I mean, what's the communication plan that we've gotten? Or I should say just the articulation of the like overall like program plan, athletics program plan and I think that's what we're craving more than anywhere else. Like, I mean, our biggest announcement that we've gotten, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys might be more in tune with it than I am, but honestly, the biggest announcement that we have received as an athletics program over the last year and a half has been that we were able to acquire the rights to the tourism tax. And but
that was already being worked on before.
But yes, it was not only already being worked on before, and so I don't really care necessarily about credit, but it's right to acknowledge that, Roger. But I guess what this whole conversation is about, and it's probably one of the reasons why we're teeing it up is because if that is our biggest announcement that we've had as an athletics program over the last couple of years, then I think what we're craving as UCF fans is not, hey, we've come into a little bit of opportunity to get some money here. It's what we're craving is what's our vision, what's our plan to do with that money. And I think for UCF as a program and as an innovative program that we have historically been, I don't think it's good enough to just say, and I don't think we also honestly can afford to just say, we're going to buy some players now, and everybody's going to have some fun and strap in for this wild ride. It's like, that's not it. It's got to be a comprehensive plan that we haven't really we all know that the communication of those plans and articulation of that is just not the strong suit of this athletic department right now with Terry at the helm. It's just communication has been lacking on that front. We don't know what the heck's going on.
Well, I agree with you. So
You're right.
let me say this about that, because we've had whole podcasts about that, right? So
That's true.
the thing that I will say is this: to Josh's original point, this year's the show me year. I don't agree with that, because I think everybody still understands that we had a bear covered this year. This is the year of building year. And by show me, if anything that I want to see as a show me is from Scott Frost and what can you do with what you have. I still think we were close last year we were close enough for that 8-win season last year if we didn't have the QB issues that we had. And we assimilated that roster on the fly. I think there's direction and vision for the football program, but I think Frost still has a little while, right? But I think for Terry, next year is the to Ben's point, where's the vision? Where's the beef? What are we doing with our with that extra money? Because I just ran through it. That narrative that we're the poor university, are we poor relative to Texas? Yeah.
But so is FSU compared to Texas.
Exactly. But we're still ahead of Mizzou. Yeah. We're ahead of Mississippi State. We're ahead of SEC schools. So tell me you can't put, or at least compete enough. And the other thing I want to say about that is this. Everybody's getting on the Cignetti train. Okay. Look what he did in Indiana. Yep. He did that in Indiana 1 year. Now he's won everywhere he's been, but he's playing at the big boy table now, right? Will he get some push from that, right? Will players come to Indiana because of that? 100% they will, right? His budget still doesn't compete against someone like Texas or like Michigan or Ohio State.
Yeah, but let's not make
or Miami.
That whole media narrative about Indiana's, like this little engine that could. I mean, they got plenty of money in that program. The NIL is crazy over there.
And I guess my point is everybody's saying like, oh, this is the example of how you can be successful in this era. Let's see him put that together for a few years, right? Before we anoint him as the example to follow. What I will say is it did prove the point that and let's look at Indiana and see where Indiana is. Since you brought that point up as far as the value of the football program, and you guys can keep talking while I look this up. Give me 2.5.
It's probably gone up, as you said, these
33
last year.
They're number 33. So to your point, Ben, they're number 33, 386 million. So even when we get to that 210 level, we're still behind them. By the way, Texas Tech just ahead of them at 389 million.
Yeah, but also you had mentioned that these numbers are from last year's numbers, right? A lot can change in this era, in 1 year's time or 6 months' time. And I would bet after last night, but after really, right after last season for Indiana and going into this season for Indiana, and obviously the season that they had, those numbers have got to be, boosted up quite a lot. If we're boosted up by 80 million, I would expect the Indianas of the world and even the Texas Techs of the world to be up more than that.
I will say this: when you start looking at the numbers ahead of us, right, and for folks that are in the playoff, like even BYU is listed at 366 million. So I don't know where they got that number from because that's all private numbers, right? But you've got Texas Tech at 32 at 389, TCU at 348, BYU at 366, Iowa State at 324, right? So you've got folks, that's kind of that threshold, that top 40. Miami, surprisingly enough, 326 million is what their value of their program is. Now it'll probably go up this year because, hey, guess what? ACC, Florida State and North Carolina and Clemson and everybody, you guys pushed for reduced rev share. What does that mean? That means Miami gets to keep all the money from the playoff. So that value is going to go up a little bit next year, right? But when you look at it, you've really got to be top 40. We're not that far out. We're right in that I'd say third tier of P4, right? So for us, there's a whole lot of people, everyone from Louisville at 286 million to Kentucky or Mississippi State or Rutgers at 190 or Baylor at 183 million, right? That we can now these are the teams that should be able to make a run periodically, but should be consistently good. We should be able to compete with that budget in the Big 12 conference, and by extension, compete for at least a championship game and maybe a playoff. Now, Scott Frost last year, with the program, the dollars that we had and the program we had to throw together, was pretty close to a 7-win season, maybe an 8-win season, right? So now, Terry, you've got to invest that money. You've got $90 million from the Orange County budget that's paying for your stadium upgrades, right? So that means you get to keep that extra. You got to reinvest it. And I want to see a vision from Terry next year to say, hey, this is the plan on a go forward, because pretty soon the noise is going to start shaking around. And this P2 narrative keeps picking up even more now lately, right? And Indiana is quote unquote P2, but I didn't want Miami to win regardless, right? I don't care who it is. I don't want Miami to win. But the SEC has taken a step back, both in basketball and in football. The SEC is starting to realize that, hey, there's a lot of other teams. Alabama doesn't have as much money as some of the other teams around here. Florida State even is valued in the top 25. Kansas is valued at $649 million. Now, part of that's probably because they just redid their stadium, right? But there's, you've got Georgia who missed out. They're at $1.34 billion. Alabama's $846 million. That's almost $500 million less than Georgia. So guess what? These SEC teams, we're entering SEC, bottom of the SEC, but SEC territory. We should be able to compete at a regular level, and that expectation has to go up. And Terry, it's your job to tell us how we're going to do it. It isn't what you had with Gus Malzahn, where you got to say, well, this is Gus's thing, and he's going to tell you how we're going to do it. It doesn't work anymore. Because football still is, we've done great in basketball. It's great up until this last game, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Up until this, we've done great in basketball. We've made a name for ourselves in basketball, et cetera. But now, right, it's time to tell us how you're going to move our football program forward, because we need a leader. We've done best when we've had Steve Sloan's, when we've had Danny White's, when we've had those type of people that are forward within the football program and are leading from the front. And understand that football is the focus. Although basketball deserves more too. Let's not get it switched. And if we finish in the top 8, we're guaranteed an extra $1 million for our NIL next year for basketball, by the way. So there's extra impetus for doing that. All right. Is there anything else you guys want to say about that? I thought that was an interesting stat that came out, and I want to kind of revision both what we've been told and where we are currently at 64, right, in the P4, and where we should be on a go-forward basis and what our expectations are of ourselves and the administration. It's no longer the little sisters of the poor. Compared to Texas, yes, but not anybody else.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have anything else to say except for I think that this conversation is whether they're talking about specifics as far as value of the program go. I think this is a type of conversation that UCF fans maybe don't even know that they're having while they're having it. But I think that we lack an understanding of what this athletic administration's vision is for the future, in particular for our football program. But as you just mentioned, Roger, it's not immune to just our football program. It's what are we doing with basketball? What are we doing with even baseball and softball and some others? So it's just
I'll tell you what we're doing with baseball. We're launching new throwback uniforms, which look great, by the way.
Those are pretty sweet. I saw those yesterday. Yeah, I might have to cop me one of those. I'm not much of a jersey guy, but those are pretty sweet.
Yeah, so we're doing that for baseball. And remember, the football schedule for next year, for this coming season, is supposed to be released on Wednesday. Yeah. So it'll be tomorrow. right? So if you're watching this live tomorrow, if you're watching this any other time during the week, you've already seen this. So it's not new news to you, but it's new news to us as of right now. Okay, let's go ahead and swim it to a little bit of hooping and hollering. Ben, that sounded a little bit like Kermit the Frog when you said that. So I think you need to do that. All right. So lots of news to kind of talk about with hoops. Obviously, we played some games. We won some games. And we played some games and we lost some games. And we lost this last one. And I just want to preface before we start going into the specifics. We told you this might happen, and it's okay, Night Nation. And we'll tell you why when we get
after the break.
No. Yeah, after the break.
No.
How's the weather? It's gonna rain. All right. Throwback if you know that show. Okay. So let's go ahead and start. Let's go ahead and start with the games that we played, right? So we played against Arizona was the big one. So let's go ahead and talk about Arizona a little bit. Good showing. We actually, our net went up after this game. We played at home. We lost, but we lost by 7 points. And
the number one team in the country.
the number one team in the country, who was shooting 53% from
objectively, we had a shot at a significant amount of the game. Every time we play someone in the top 15 or 20, we have to have about 36 minutes of constant solid defense, hands out, actually shuffling their feet, not moving around, not getting on refs when they miss calls, and we know they miss them too. Just hard-nosed defense.
So not Googling it?
He's not the only one. And we did that significantly in Arizona, and we were significantly competitive. And there were times we were pushing and just couldn't get over the hump. I get it. Now, being at that game, things you don't probably see on TV, their 7-2 center or whatever, who somehow had 0 fouls the whole game, liked to put his elbows out and stretch that elbow when you're around the pick, which if I did that in the YMCA,
how many texts would have been called on Taco Fall doing that?
Oh my God. So I hate saying the refs. There were definitely things called
the Big 12
on them and shouldn't have, but it was just not good. It wasn't good, and it was so infuriating, and it was obvious when you were in the room. There was a lot of "Hey ref, you suck" going on from the student section. Sometimes right, sometimes wrong, but that's what we had. It was a good competitive game, and that's what we need to do when we face the top 10 teams. That's not what we saw tonight if you're here live.
Yeah. So anybody who wants to vent, the chat is open. And we will talk about it on the show if we decide that we want to talk about that 30-point loss. But going back to Arizona, I mean, you look at it statistically, we knew Arizona was going to be a team that plays in the paint, right? That's what they don't shoot a lot of threes. So their field goal percentage is going to be higher. They were 3 from 13 from 3, so just 23%, 8 of 26 from UCF. We only shot 31%. And we shot 40%. We shot 70 shots. 70. They shot 55. Yeah, shots. But we weren't shooting well. I mean, 40%, our average is right around 45. It wasn't too much that they were doing defensively because we got a lot of open looks. We just had a lid a little bit on the basket. What do you guys think? I
know. I didn't get a chance to watch it live. I actually had to coach 3 basketball games on Saturday. So at 2:00, 4:00, and 6:00 on Saturday, I was coaching.
How many of them did you coach, and how many of them did you sub in and shave your beard for, and then just play?
Oh no, I definitely coached all 3 of them. But yeah, but that being said, I was able to watch the first 10 minutes or so of the game on Sunday prior to me having to do something, and I just one of the things I noticed is like what you just mentioned, Roger, is that especially in the beginning of the game, it just seemed like we were able to actually get some good motion on offense and actually get some good looks around the basket too, that we were just not falling. We missed some. I mean, I remember Riley Kugel missing like 2 or 3 straight layups in the beginning of the game that could have got us a lot of
this game too.
Yeah, it would have got us a lot of momentum. I mean, well, in the Iowa State game that happened tonight, I mean, he kind of got us started in the game, but he definitely missed a couple layups down the stretch. But in the beginning, I remember seeing that they did, kind of impose their will physically from the beginning of the game. What's interesting about that, we were just talking about stats, and you were talking about the amount of shots that they took versus the amount of shots that we took, getting up 15 more shots. But one of the things that we haven't mentioned yet is that we shot 14 free throws.
Yeah, I was getting to that.
13 of them, but they shot 33 free throws.
Yep.
And they made 23 of those, so that's 10 more points from the line, even though that they are the bigger, more physical basketball team overall. So it's quite interesting when you see 20.
There should have been 3 texts called that I saw. 3 texts that I saw.
So from what I felt and saw live, again, my level of basketball is decent, but not Ben, right?
Why don't you say that, not Roger? Are you serious?
Listen, there's a difference. The only difference is that like Ben has played at NCAA level and has been on ESPN as a right. So
hold on, I've played
similar. Who cares? Who cares? Let's just hear Josh's points.
Yeah. Can I give someone just like a light amount of flowers? Jesus. Here's the deal. The passes that were a little wider open against other opponents were not open against both Kansas, but a little more open, and Arizona. And here's the thing. It's not like lockdown defense, although we scored more against them than like 3 other teams out of their 18 or 19 they've beaten. It's just you have to be precise and crisp, and sometimes it wasn't, and it showed. And they had active hands that were getting to balls and poking some to the backcourt that you had to come and run back up a couple of times. Like they were doing things on defense that we just don't always see day in and day out. So I think we adjusted decent to that, but we weren't just ready for that. It seemed there was.
I was just going to say, to your point, right? So turnovers, it's interesting because in the numbers, right? Because you're right. And one of the things I've been talking about, I even put it on the shorts, was our cross-court passes that were driving me nuts, right? But total turnovers, 13 turnovers, right? And 13 assists. You want your assist-to-turnover ratio to be better than that. However, Arizona's turnovers, 12 turnovers as well, and they were at 13 assists. So that's one of our
more skill than them. They have 5 steals versus our 6. So I mean, we're the stats were even on that front.
The points in the paint were the difference, right? Normally, this team, despite the fact that we talk about the 3 a lot, we only average about 8 to 10 to 12.
Yeah, we don't shoot the 3 a lot this year, which is a good thing.
Right.
But so when 18 was in, we couldn't. Like they would crash down on the paint very, very tough. Folks couldn't do that, dribble in, loop around, get around the baseline, kick out to someone who may be open and keep moving the ball. Like their defense on keeping us out of the paint with both their height too really flustered us. That's what happened from what I remember on the first half while we kept kicking and going for threes that just weren't dropping. So lit on the hoop, as you were saying, it was a cacophony of a lot of those things. And that just, Burke's getting 2 quick fouls. Like there are just a lot of things that didn't lead to everything we wanted, because that's a winnable game. And they
Yeah,
have a
it's winnable.
phenomenal team.
Yeah,
It's a
they are
game.
like legit number one team
Oh,
in the
yeah.
country. They are no doubt number one team in the country. They are very, very good.
Yes.
And for me to see just, like, again, I wasn't able to watch it, but just following along and just hearing what I've heard about it over the last few days is just the level of competitiveness that we showed in that game is just great. And whatever was nagging Jermichael Stillwell, or maybe happened during that game that caused him to have or caused him to be out tonight against Iowa State. He had a down game a little bit comparatively to the rest of the games that he's had this year, and so for him to be a little bit down, but yet we were still able to come within one on the rebounding battle, really play with a very physical team, and hold Koa Pete, who is going to be a lottery pick in this coming NBA draft, to only 4 points, really kind of frustrate him constantly. To hold a player like that of his caliber to 4 points, 3 rebounds. I mean, I think that shows something was working on the defensive end as well. Just the unfortunate reality is that we didn't have it working on all aspects, but we just it wasn't enough to take it from the number one team in the country who has not lost a game.
I would argue that, because if you do, to Josh's point on the fouls, right? And I hate to say this, but 23 fouls called on us, 13 fouls. Now, again, late, there were some extra fouls that were called, right? And that's strategically done, right? But this was a 1-point game going into the half.
It was 3 points, but yeah, sure enough.
3-point game going into the half, right? So basically a 1-possession game. So this team was playing well enough to win this game, and they played well enough throughout the game to continue to play. Getting the shots off 70-55 is a perfect example of that. We had an off shooting night. Someone who didn't have an off shooting night was Themus Folks, who had 30 points in this game.
Career.
And that's a good sign, because one of the things, that's one of the things that Ben and I were talking about Folks early on. The thing that drove me nuts, that Ben was like, I'm so happy to see a pass first like point guard. And I'm like, I need you to score some points so that they take you seriously when you drive the paint and kick out, right? Like, that was one thing. But he's shown, and he's shown this, he showed it against Kansas too. You saw that against
he showed it tonight in flashes against ISU.
And my point is, like, you start putting that on tape, people have to take you seriously. They play the defense. They don't clog the lane as much. They don't come off of you because they're expecting you to pass, right? And they have to play up, which leaves somebody else open if you do pass, right? So that was the big thing that I've seen growth-wise from Folks, because he was a scorer at his previous stop at Milwaukee.
Yeah,
we just didn't see him doing it here, right? And so having him have the ability to turn it on and start to take over games, I think that's a credit to Themus Folks more than anything else. And I just wanted to point that out, because putting up 30 points against Arizona, especially when the lid was on for a lot of the rest of the team, right? That's a huge deal. And he almost had a double-double, right? He had 30 points and 8 assists. So this was a solid game from him. The big thing was just the shooting. The difference is 53% versus 40%, right? Despite having an advantage, 15-shot advantage, and having a disadvantage at the free throw line.
Yeah, 10 more points from the free throw line for Arizona in a 7-point game is sometimes tough to swallow. Obviously, we don't know all of that, but I mean, hey, at least one of the good signs, I guess, is when we got to the line, we sure as heck made them. I mean, 93%. We made 13 of our 14. Only missed one free throw the whole game. So that's a sustainable Not at that high percentage, but I'm just saying that's a good sign for the rest of this season, is that we gain all that confidence at the line. And as long as we can get to the line more often than not, more often than we did in this Arizona game, that'll give us a chance and bode well for us.
That helps in close games, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. It has this year. It has this
Yeah.
year. I mean, it helped us in the Kansas game. It helped us, to close out other games. It's definitely helped us this year, and it will help us down the stretch. In these tough games coming up,
because we will get fouled, especially if we have a lead late, right? So some of these close games that we had with a lead late, where we start getting hacked, we're on average, we're shooting about 78% as a team for the year, which is pretty solid and bodes well for us. Now, one of the other games that I wanted to mention that we played was KSU, because we went to KSU, and for the first time ever, we won!
We won on the road to the Big 12. Holy cow.
Well, it was the second time we went on the road to the Big 12, but it was
Right,
the
I knew
first
that,
time
but
we
also
won at KSU in anything, football or basketball. So, and it's always a tough environment. Our environment was tough against Arizona. I mean, that was a packed house. I think it was standing room only for the students. So the students showed out. Night Nation showed out. It wasn't one of those things where it was all Arizona fans, right? Night Nation showed out, which is awesome, building some momentum and some energy, hopefully for ticket sales for next year for the basketball team. But we beat KSU. Field goal percentage, we had a hot night, 52%. They actually shot 4 more shots than what we did. Typically, it's the other way around because we have a lot of transition offense. We went 7 for 15, so 47% from 3. Again, that 12 number is about our average for the year, unless we get behind way late. They went 9 for 15, so shot 60% from 3. Free throw percentage was crazy low for us, 61 versus their 60. There was a lid there on the which surprises me. Even Kugel every once in a while will go through a drought on the free throws where it's like, okay, dude, you are an amazing shooter. What are you doing? Rebounds, offensive rebounds, dead even. Defensive rebounds, we won barely. Assists, they had 25 assists to our 18, which is absolutely crazy. Steals, we had 8, but we only had 10 turnovers to their 12. So our assist to turnover ratio, right? 18 assists to 10 turnovers. And that's where we get our wins. And typically when you see that is our assist to turnover, that means we're moving the ball, we're finding the backdoor cuts. There were some amazing passes. There were some alley-oops that were freaking dynamic. That's something kind of new to our game. The guys are starting to trust each other for those alley-oop dunks. And it makes a big difference. Fast break points, 14 to 15, points in the paint, 40 to 44, fouls, 14. Not 23. Right.
How that looks.
And so we won at KSU. And I didn't want, as much as we talked about Arizona as a measuring stick of who this team is, right? I wanted to also point out KSU, because KSU does not lose at home.
Yeah.
Ever. Like their winning percentage is something ridiculous, like 90%, right? So for us to go on the road and actually win that game, I think that says a lot about this team as well.
Yeah, I think this game at Kansas State was a great showing for our ability to answer any type of run that the other team makes, especially from an offensive standpoint. I thought we were just firing on all cylinders in the first half. Like we were holding them to, we really contained PJ Haggerty. He's one of the nation's leading scorers. I mean, he's a guy that came from Memphis and he's played great for Kansas State. And we really contained him well in the first half. And just overall, like we were able to play, on both sides of the court just really well in the first half. I thought in the second half, we got pretty complacent at times defensively, and you saw me blowing up our group chat just kind of complaining about some of the defensive lapses that we had in the second half. It was really burning me up, and the main reason why it was stressing me out so much is because we just have this bugaboo about playing on the road in the Big 12. Like, we had an 8-game losing streak in the Big 12 on road games coming into this game. And so I didn't want that great first half and really the great showing that we were having offensively, especially, just to go to waste because we were having some lapses on defense. And so it was really stressing me out. But what was able to counteract that is just every time they seem to go on a little bit of a run or make a couple baskets in a row, them being Kansas State, we answered the call. We would make a big shot or, a backdoor cut for an alley-oop, or just a big time offensive rebound for a putback. I mean, it was just like we always seemed to make the right plays on the offensive end. I mean, folks, that was his back-to-back 12 assist game. He had 12 assists, 1 turnover in that game. In the game prior, he had also had 12 assists and like 1 turnover as well. So he had 3 turnovers in the game prior to that with 12 assists. So he had a 2-game streak there with 24 assists and 4 turnovers. That's big time numbers from your point guard there. And so Folks was getting it done. We had Burks was still in the middle of his slump, but he had 2 big threes in that game, one at the end of the first half and one kind of in the middle of the second half, from that corner area that he likes so much, that were able to fall. And so I thought the Kansas State game was a great win on the road, because it absolutely was. It was a big time. It was a quad 1 win at the time, but I guess they dropped in the rankings after they lost to us at home. So it turned out to be a quad 2 win, but still a great quality resume building win that we can the committee can point to at the end of the season and say that was a big one. But I saw some flashes on the defensive end that I didn't really like in the second half. And I'm just hoping that we can tighten up on the defensive end, because I just felt like when you're going up against a top 10 team on the road like we did tonight, that's where those types of things get taken advantage of by a really disciplined, high quality team. And that's where the Iowa State game tonight just kind of showed what happens when you have those defensive lapses against a top tier team. But the Kansas State win was a big one for us.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about that Iowa State big game, right? 57-87. So, and I want to look at this through the context of, what should Night Nation take away from this, given, we've got a big history of starting to go on losing streaks. Number one, we warned about this going into this in the future. We're still sitting at 14-4 and 6 games away, really, from a 77% chance of making the tournament as an at-large. We win 7 games, and that chance goes to 100%, literally, statistically, right? So this game, the first half, we pulled it within 6, right? So we started really slow. Iowa State, as a reminder, was number what in the country?
Yeah, they were number 2 last week. Now they're number 9, but that's only because they lost a couple of tough games last week on the road. So they're number 9
we're
now.
getting a pissed off Iowa State at home after losing 2 games. After losing 2 games that had a point to prove at Iowa State, it was, we got the game within 6, right? And then the wheels just kind of fell off. And it was just turnover, steal, turnover, steal, turnover. Okay, this game, 19 turnovers.
13 of those turnovers in the first half. The first half, in my opinion, couldn't have gone worse. It was by far our worst half of basketball of the season. The second half wasn't that much better, but the first half was just, I mean, we spotted them. We had 4 straight turnovers in the first 4 minutes of the game, 3 minutes of the game, excuse me. You can't just give Iowa State, literally one of the toughest, I would rank it probably top 5 toughest places to play in the country, and you can't spot them 5 extra possessions in the first few minutes of the game. Like, you just can't do that. And we had like silly turnovers. I mean, a lot of credit to Iowa State's defense, but in the beginning of the game, I'll give them a ton of credit for some of the defense, or for some of the turnovers they forced from us in the second half. But in the beginning of the game, it almost seemed like we were just giving them the ball. Like, we just weren't quite ready for their defensive pressure and that intense environment. And so that is a little bit of a like, oh man, okay, I didn't want to see that tonight. We're all, but at the end of the day, we knew that this stretch was going to be really difficult, and we're trying to grab wins where we can. I was just hoping for a little bit better showing, like, especially from taking care of the ball, that aspect. I didn't want to see too many silly turnovers, even though their defense is really good. I want to give them a lot of credit, but their offense is this, very high level, like free flowing backdoor cuts. They make these, they make quick passes to the wing, and that player will drive towards the middle of the paint while that backdoor cut is happening from the weak side. They'll make really good basket cuts coming from the wing down to the post as the opposite driver is coming in. Like, there's a lot of unique, like, way that they find spacing in Iowa State's offense. I mean, they're a perennial top 10 team for a reason, and they have been for a while. But Iowa State is definitely really good this season. They're deserving of the number 2 ranking last week, before their 2 tough losses, and we met them at a very difficult time. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So points off of turnovers, 31 points off of turnovers. Now, traditionally,
they had like 20 points. They had 18 points off of turnovers in the first half, and we had 0.
Yeah.
That was wild.
Yeah, it was extremely wild because, again, watching it the second half, turnover after turnover after turnover.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that really jumps out at me was free throws again.
Yeah.
We're playing the number 9 team in the country, and they have an aggressive defense, and it was 21-6.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just wild. It's just crazy. That's a 21-6. Yeah. Again, we only missed 1, and they actually shot terrible from the line too. They had multiple times where they missed both free throws.
57%. 57%, which is nuts.
Yeah.
So,
and there was multiple times though. My son and I are sitting there watching the game. We're just like, it's just not a foul. And then they missed both free throws. And we're like, well, bottom line.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is, right, so they got this game 65 shots to our 57. That's something I've been tracking all season because we average about 10 to 15 extra shots per game over an opponent, whether we win or lose, no matter what, right? So when you talk about the turnovers, right, going back to those turnovers, 19 turnovers. Yeah, I was right. 19 total turnovers. So if you go to what our average is, which is between 8 and 10 per game, right, you cut that in half effectively. And not only does that take points, that 31 goes to 15 points, right? But also you're taking the number of possessions away from them as well that they're going to score on 2 points on transition, right?
Yeah, and a team that
so it's a double. Yeah, it's a double. It's really truly a double negative and very hard to overcome. And it was just weird because we got it within 6, and then it was just like we just started turning the ball over. Steal. And this is a team that protects the basketball very well. We dribble well. We dribble out well. We don't get caught in traps. typically this team does pretty well. The only thing, again, and I'll say this, and Stillwell's one of the worst at this, is throwing a pass. You can't do this in the Big 12. You can't throw a cross-court pass to someone in the corner to shoot a three over the middle of the paint. Secondly, Stillwell was out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, and that was what I was going to mention. It's the first time we said that Stillwell was out. And one of the actions that did work in this game is whenever one of our guards, because Iowa State is really good about pressuring like above the 3-point line on the guards. Like they'll either just one-on-one on-ball pressure, or they'll find opportunities to trap, and they try to get it so you can't initiate your offense. Basically, they try to get you caught up above the 3-point line, and that was no different tonight. But whenever we had an opportunity to like kind of get it towards the top of the key, or get it below the top of the key, where getting towards that free throw line area, we had a number of times in the early second half, late first half, where we were able to get a pass down to a wide open man by the basket. Jordan Burst got 2 quick buckets like 5 minutes into the second half, just by a pass from the top of the key straight to a wide open layup. And that area of the court, and I hope that it doesn't go beyond tonight as far as Jermichael Stillwell being out, because that's his area of the court. Like catching the ball on the high post around that free throw line and creating for the rest of the team, whether he shoots that little mid-range jumper or he passes out of it, and that the whole offense kind of goes through Jermichael Stillwell a lot for long stretches of the game in that high post area. And we were really missing that tonight. I wonder what I don't think we would have won. It was actually funny. The commentator said it. The play-by-play guy says about 5 minutes left of the game, the play-by-play commentator says, I just wonder what this game would be like if Jermichael Stillwell was active tonight. And the play-by-play guy, or excuse me, the commentator, basically, I mean, without hesitation, goes, "Nah, it wouldn't be much different tonight." And that's probably true.
Funny.
That's probably true. But by the same token, I do wonder what this game would have looked like from an offensive standpoint. I think it would have cut down on some of those turnovers. I think we would have had more stability on offense, and then we would have it kind of is obvious to say, but he just would have provided more activity around the glass. I mean, they got a lot of second chance points, a lot of points in the paint, and some of that rebounding acumen that he provides for this team is just next level. And we really missed him from that point tonight. And then just to reiterate on big men in general, I mean, we don't have Stillwell, but then Bull got into 2 quick fouls right away. He was out the whole first half, basically. And then Jeremy Femina comes in for Bull, and he winds up getting injured himself. So we really had no height tonight. We had Carmelo Pacheco playing 20 minutes. We had George Beal playing, I didn't look that up, like maybe 17 minutes or whatever. We had guys, you're right, 20 minutes. So like we had guys playing extended period of time tonight that like don't normally see the floor for that long. And I think that also killed it.
Which is fine as long as it's not the number 2 team a week ago.
Right. It's got to be our best versus their best. It's just the way it goes against a team like that. We're not going to be able to compete at a really high level when Pacheco's guarding their 3-point shooter. I can't even say it. His first name's Milan. Let's put it, or Milan. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's just not going to go well when we have that extended period of time. I mean, I don't want to harp on him or anything, but that's just not the highest level of play that we can provide for that extended period of time.
All right. So having said all that, everybody watched it. We lost by 30 points. Where does this leave the Knights? The Knights right now are 14-4, 3-3 in conference, which puts us in 8th place. We're ahead of the Bear Kitties, which we beat. but behind Kansas. Now, West Virginia is 3-2 in conference, 12-6 overall. They're ahead of us. Iowa State, believe it or not, is 5th because they had those 2 losses in conference. BYU is 4-1. Then it's Texas Tech, Houston, and Arizona. So what does that mean? That means if you look ahead at our schedule, West Virginia we thought was going to be tough, but it's a tougher game than we expected. They're a big defensive team, right? So we're going to have to score effectively against them. Kansas we already beat. Iowa State we just played. BYU is, again, a tough team this year.
Go there. Yeah,
and we have to go there. Texas Tech, again, they are 14-4 as well. They had most of their losses out of conference, so they seem to be hitting their stride. So that's going to be a tough game. Houston, obviously, is always tough. They're 5-0 in conference. Again, another defensive-heavy team. We've done really well against teams that don't score. And Houston has been scoring in the low 60s and winning games the way that we used to like 4 or 5 years ago, where we're keeping people below 60, right? So our team can score, and we've done well against teams that rely on defense to win. So it'll be interesting. I think there's going to be some games that we thought that were going to be less difficult that are going to be more difficult, and I think there's going to be some games that we're underrated in that we will do better than what is expected. I think Houston's going to be one of them. We always play tough against Houston, but that one's going to be tough.
Yeah, at Houston too. It's that's where it becomes difficult as well. But we've got 2 games prior to playing the number 12 team in the country coming up here, where I think are winnable games. At Colorado and Arizona State at home, like better be a winnable game. So
yeah, and Colorado again, they're a team that's putting up a lot of points, but statistically we should beat them. It'll be interesting. Michael Stillwell.
I think they're a little overrated. I think we take Colorado, but it's not going to be an easy game. But I think that we bounce back at Colorado on Saturday.
Yep. So we got Colorado and then Arizona State. That should be a win, which means that puts us about 4 wins out in the rest of the schedule for us to have that 77% chance of winning. Although these 30 points will hurt us, but it's away, so it won't hurt us a lot. And it depends on what our competition does as well. Okay. Let's go ahead and swim it. All right. As much as we love our hoops, we do have a few other things that we need to get to. And one of those is listener love. So I'll start this with that. Number 1, had lots of comments again this week. Thank you guys so much for all of your comments, for participating in the show. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Make sure you tell your friends. Again, we don't make any money off of this, but we do gain exposure. So if you tell your friends, if you like, if you subscribe, if you comment, all of those things help us with the old algorithm. We had 20,000 views in 30 days, not so long ago, within this month. So just make sure that you're continuing to do those things, not for us, but for you. If you like our show, please share it with others. All right. So getting back to it, our number 1 poster, Econ Advisor, who I've been told his name is really Bob. So Econ, we don't know. So if you'll give us a shout and let us know what your actual name is, so I don't have to call you Econ Advisor each time. He starts us off. He says UCF now has a 4th and 5th quarterback transfers, one very experienced, the other redshirt Frosh. Yes. Texas recruited 48888 said the GM had killed it. And we were talking about the GM that we had for UCF basketball. And that comes after the news that we unfortunately lost him. Unfortunately, no longer with us. I think JD has some influence as we played several of the players that ended up transferring the year before, hoping to finish top 8. So the point I'm saying with that is, yes, our GM absolutely helped us. Yes, he helped us put together the roster, because I like to say and, there are several of the players, including Stillwell, including Themis Folks that we played the year prior that Johnny identified to bring us here. All right. Then we have Savannah Fan. He says, I'd still like to see some additional Q1. I can't read this completely. Like to see some, additional O-line talent brought in and an emergency QB now that Davy left. Check one for the emergency QB. O-line, we still got some work to do, but it's pretty much over. R-A-R-E Guapiri says Andrew Brody would have been a good choice at quarterback from the transfer portal. As we said, I agree, but Frost was looking for someone who was experienced and could pick up the offense last year, partly due to the carousel of QBs. He learned a valuable lesson about getting a high enough quality QB that wouldn't limit installs. Remember, only 20 to 25% of our offense was in last year. Our current is a big get, made the playoffs. We're talking about our JMU trade, and is known to be a student of the game and hard worker. Econ Advisor comes back at us, says, can the Knights help Iowa State to continue its slide after going undefeated in the first half of the season? No, Econ Advisor, we cannot this game, but we will in the future. Econ Advisor also says UCF took 15 more shots versus Arizona 2. Agreed. There are still 11 UCF players in the portal who haven't found homes. That was 3 days ago. We obviously talked about those that did. Davy found one, Black found a home, and several others. Frost desperately needs to sign at least 3 more O-linemen. We all agree O-linemen may be a problem. That's what we started at the top of the show. So if you're just now joining us, make sure you check that out. Econ says, finally have a squad that's tough enough to challenge Houston. I agree. I think Houston's going to be a closer game, and we have a chance to win that game, provided that Stillwell is back. I had heard that he was going to warm up with the team. Sounds like Ben had said he had heard that he might have a boot on, so we'll have to figure that out. It seems like every year we come up against something like that with the basketball team. 26 transfers so far. That number went up. Broadcasting is now on 5 different networks. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with that. You've got CBS Sports. You've got all these others. It seems like in spite of our ability to win, yeah, I know. But still, we've got some big games that we're going elsewhere, right? Cincy saved the game for us, but UCF had their all. Okay, so we had some new subs this week. Thank you so much for who you are. Unfortunately, you do not have the setting on where I can see your names, but welcome to you anyway, and thank you for subbing. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share all the content if you like what we're doing, because we appreciate you. And with all of that being said, and yes, I'm hurrying up because we've got 9 minutes left, less than 9 minutes left in the show. We're going to go ahead and swiv it yet again to Josh's sometimes funny fact of the week. Josh, take it away.
Yeah, this is a pretty easy one. So we're going to go to women's basketball, a sport everyone here knows a ton about. When is the last time the women's basketball team had more than 4 conference wins?
Ooh.
2022
is what I was going to say.
Yeah, 2022, not in the Big 12, 2022.
Since we're running out of time, you hit it on the head. 2021-22. We were 14-1.
Since we're running out of time, we hit it on the head either way.
Yeah, we nailed it either way.
No. I wasn't going to belabor the point, but now you're making me. We were 14-1 in conference. We beat UF in the NCAA tournament, lost to 5 in stores to UConn. That was the last year of Coach Abe. And amazingly, it's the only time she's ever ended the year ranked. She went to the NCAA tournament the next year with Georgia, had a couple of pretty bad years, and now I think 16-3 as of this recording, so maybe on her way back.
Yeah, Coach Abe, I really wish we were able to keep her. We just couldn't afford her. If she had come in during the Big 12 years, I think we may have been able to hold on to her. She is a great coach. I know she had a bad couple years at Georgia and took a couple of our big stars that year when she left. Several of our big stars when she left. But great for our program, did really, really well here, earned her stripes with nobody in the arena to start with, and really built up that women's basketball program. And you see where we are today. So, all right, Josh, we're going to go ahead and swiv it again.
Swiv it again.
To a Quick update on other UCF sports that Alan and Andrew do not watch, and probably Trey too, but that's okay. And he's stuck in the hospital, which is why he's not here this week with us. Remember, he works in the medical field. It is not because he is sick. I just wanted to point that out. All right. Josh, take it away.
So speaking of the women's basketball team, they are 10-8, and they really should have been 11-7. They lost to Cincinnati in overtime 59-63, and they were up by 3 points with 4 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Devastating way to lose, but they did. But they made up for the space game. They beat Colorado 74-68, and as we know, it's the Big 12. It doesn't get any easier. The Knights go to Waco on Wednesday, January 21st to meet number 14 or 17, depending on the poll, Baylor at 8 p.m., and then they come home to face TCU, which is ranked number 9 or 8, depending on the poll, this Saturday, January 24th at 2 p.m. The women's track and field team set 5 personal records in Gainesville at the Jenny Carnes Invitational. And as I predicted, except for one stupid exception, the UCF dance earned 5th place in hip-hop. I nailed that. I was saying top 5, probably 5th. Co-ed large cheer.
Did you put that out on a shorts?
I either did that on shorts or I think I might have done it on the UCF Sports message board. I'm not sure which.
If it isn't on shorts, it doesn't count, Josh.
Hey, you know what? I only could do so much. Unfortunately, co-ed large cheer took 2nd place by 0.5. Unfortunately, the loss is to a team that we should not lose to. The Cows won, unfortunately. So they're tied with us with 4 national championships next year. The number 14th men's tennis team is 4-0. They beat the Cows in Orlando 4-0 and Mercer 5-2. We actually haven't even given up more than 2 sets the entire year so far. Next up, that might change. We're playing against another pair of ranked teams at the ITA kickoff in Berkeley, California versus number 19, Southern California, or USC. That side on Friday, January 23rd at 2 p.m. and number 15 or number 21, 15 Cal or 21 Oklahoma, depending on what happens there on Saturday, January 24th. But the time on that one is TBA. Speaking of ranked tennis teams, our women's tennis team is number 24, and they also beat the Cows. So 2 out of 3 teams beat the Cows last weekend. They won 4-1. Bethune-Cookman was canceled, probably due to rain, more than likely. Up next is the ITA kickoff weekend versus UCLA, not in California, but in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. That's on Saturday, January 24th at 12 p.m. Last and certainly not least, baseball and softball will hold a joint fan fest as you get the docile tones that Roger puts up there. And maybe he saw the cue note that I had on the doc. There's going to be a joint fan fest on January 31st at John Giuliano Park. That's going to run from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. with parking in the baseball outfield ending 6. That's going to be after another big men's basketball weekend. We have the Block Party and the Space versus number 14 Texas Tech. The Block Party is going to start, I think, about 10 o'clock, and the basketball game should be at 12 o'clock. If I remember correctly, I didn't throw it in the notes. Softball is going to start off on February 5th versus Boston University at 3 p.m. versus CSU Bakersfield at 6 p.m. And baseball will start with our annual foe the first week of the season coming down here from the Northeast, Siena. That will be February 13th at 6 p.m. I bet Ben, if he can, will be there for one of the 3 games.
All right, so final thoughts. Thank you. That was a mouthful because sports are starting again, which is super exciting. Yes. And that means that Ben is going to get us our annual interview with Rich Wallace, which we absolutely adore. We get him every year. He gives us his time. We appreciate him immensely for doing that. We may also get our UCF women's soccer coach back again, Josh. That easy. Being said,
I thought you were going to say Coach Ball.
Yeah, and so it'll be a great time. It's the off season. Technically, football's officially over. I'm glad that Indiana won. Basketball, guys, don't freak out. We've still got a good team. I still think this is a tournament team, and we'll see what happens when we get there. Other than that, have a great rest of your week. Go Knights and charge on.
Oh, Roger, you went tight with that. So there's this interesting band called Juju. It's Xiu. experimental pop band, came out with a new album a couple days ago.